Top of the morning to you. Welcome to our special coverage of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I'm Olumide Macaulay. The headlines: Russia launches air attacks, killing 2 in early morning Kyiv attack. Russian military repels drone attack, damaging 4 planes. Plus, White House suggests Kremlin is behind Prigozhin's death. Thank you for joining us. Debris rained from the Kyiv night sky as Russia launched air attacks early Wednesday, or rather today, killing at least 2 people in the Ukrainian capital. That's according to Mayor Vitaly Klitschko, who wrote on the Telegram messaging app. Orange bowls of fire dropped from the sky as targets destroyed by Ukrainian air defenses fell on several buildings in Kyiv, exploding into large clouds of fire and smoke. The bodies of 2 people were found in a residential building, and 1 person was wounded by glass shards. Mr. Klitschko added that debris fell in 4 places in the capital. We now bring in retired Navy Commodore and head of Department of International Relations and Diplomatic Studies at Christian University, Abeokuta, Dr. Kunle Olawunmi. Dr. Olawunmi is speaking to us virtually from Abeokuta in Ogun State. A warm welcome to the program this morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
This humanitarian consequence of this war is exactly what I have previously alluded to in previous editions. In this case, where students of preschool or early school age, primary school age, are forgetting, and high school age are forgetting what they're learning in schools. That is just one side of it, apart from the casualties that have to do with loss of life, the psychological consequence of this war on young people who have to be raised in this environment of sirens, loud bangs, reports of attacks, reports of their kin and their kith and kin who have left the country because of this conflict. Not to talk of the ecosystem consequence, where the wildlife has been destroyed, the vegetation has been destroyed. So there are many reasons to argue for a cessation of hostilities. At this point where we are, where there's even been a recent attack on Kyiv, what do you see as a development of this war that describes its current state?
Thank you very much for that question. Though, if you look at what's happened in the previous days, you observe that the combatants are actually getting tired. Events are showing that things are slowing down. The Russians are running out of personnel. They're running out of quality, fighters. Ukrainians are also getting weary. They're getting tired. So once fatigue starts setting in, there's going to be a sort of arbitration or negotiation, maybe very soon. That is what I perceive, because I think everybody seems to be getting tired of what is going on in Ukraine. And I think Putin is going to be a bit smart, because I know he's going to China soon, and the home front is not very secure, it's not very safe. And I think it would be better for him to start thinking of some level of compromise at this point, because since the NATO forces and allies are on top of their game, seeing some level of implosion going on in Moscow. And I think it's going to be wiser for Putin at this point to try to see, maybe through China, to see how he can bring this war to an end.
Would it be probable to suggest that there are forces and interests who would rather see this war protracted, who would rather see this war continue, who would rather see this war be extended, because there's some profit to be made in a war? Defense, for instance.
Yeah, absolutely. I can be very specific. The Chinese will be very happy that this is going on. The Americans are very happy that this is going on. And the people I normally, often refer to in my lecture series as the deep state, they're happy this is going. A lot of money is being made right now. A lot of businesses are going on. War is basically not a game. It's not like a match, like you play a football match. It's basically it's a tournament. And, in a tournament, there are a series of games that, you have to play for the ultimate winner to emerge. So there are some players in this game right now that are comfortable that this is going on. I've mentioned China because of its interest in Taiwan. The Americans, this is an opportunity for them to actually grind down Putin and make it very, very comfortable. And I think the Europeans also, to some extent, they want this war to continue so that they can use Ukraine as a buffer to limit the ambition of Putin. So war is a game, and it's business, actually.
The Wagner mercenary group current quagmire that they find themselves because of the death of their facilitators, the second in command, Utkin and Prigozhin. I asked this of our previous guest, and I'm asking the same of you. Will it destabilize these nations where they're currently entrenched?
Yeah, I was thinking you will not ask me about the Wagner issue because it's too early in the day to really do a proper analysis of what is really going on. But your question is simple. It's going to destabilize Africa because, when you disrupt the kind of operation that has been planned by the Wagner leader, and you don't have immediate solution by getting a different leader. I know that Putin is trying to put somebody to actually lead this. I think it's the son of one of the secretary of the Russian Security Council. His son is being proposed to take over that. But for me, it could have done that very early not to allow this group to start what they are trying to do in Belarus, for instance, and what they've just done in Gabon and maybe in Niger. But, whose interest? As I said, what is going on is not personal to anybody. It's just business. And when you have I want to refer to Russia as a parallel state, where, it's not just only about dictatorship. It's not just about maybe authoritarianship. This is like a gangster. This is like a mafia setup. And there's no referee in this game. And that's what I tell you. In a game of soccer, you have a referee. In a game of even volleyball, you have a referee. In this case, who is the referee? Is it the United Nations? So Putin can do whatever he likes. And I think the way he has killed or supposedly, eliminated the Wagner leader, it's not going to be very good for Africa because I'm very passionate about Africa when it comes to this type of discussion. I mean, look at what is happening in Gabon. I'm worried because Gabon is just south of Nigeria. Niger is gone, Mali is gone, Burkina Faso is gone. So we are basically surrounded by this kind of instability. And if Nigeria does not react quickly, or ECOWAS, we're going to have a situation whereby all our resources, both gas, diamond, uranium, and so on, will be cutted away by these rogue nations, using their foreign military fighters. So I think EU and maybe ECOWAS, they should have an emergency meeting and try to stop what is going on in Africa. Wagner, I don't see what makes them thick. It's just that the country and the nations are losing their sovereignty. And you look at the international security environment, it's in disarray. The people that are supposed to be, managing the international security environment are the ones that are actually involved in destabilizing the entire globe. So how do you now bring about this respite where Gabon is imploding, Cote d'Ivoire, Guinea, everywhere in West Africa is imploding? And we know the reason. It's just because they want to come here and steal the resources that belongs to these nations. And nobody is talking. So to answer your question, yes, the demise of Wagner leader is going to affect West Africa in a very negative way, definitely.
Just an interesting fact about Gabon that it saw action actually during World War II when Allied forces actually invaded pro-Vichy France colonial rulers of Gabon at that time. And also, up to this time, do you think that now ECOWAS and the African Union have to maybe toe another line and begin to re-strategize? Because if it was a coincidence that these coups were happening, it no longer is, because it's obviously now a trend that has to be addressed. Do you think that the African Union and ECOWAS should begin to take a different tact in addressing these situations in these countries? And I also asked earlier about destabilization in those countries or instability in those countries, because it obviously emboldens the rebels in those countries and the forces, jihadist forces in some of those countries, to come out, knowing that Wagner, in a moment of weakness, can be attacked.
Yeah, I think your concern is well-founded. You know, Gabon, Equatorial Guinea, and Malabo, I mean, they are very, very well endowed when it comes to resources. And they have not been very lucky with leadership, so to say. So it's just free for all, you know. But one trend that I want us to really understand is the role of Russia in all this. Mm. You know, they were latecomers, you know, after the Berlin conference, as I mentioned previously. You know, they were not really, you know, involved to that point where they enjoy stealing resources as others were doing. Then look at the role of China in all this. And the United States are supposed to be responsible and try to moderate some of these things. It's also involved in so many other countries. And in Syria, they were in Libya, they were in Iraq, they were in Afghanistan, they were everywhere. So the issue of moral, I mean, the United States doesn't have the moral standard today to caution the Russians. And the African Union should try as much as possible, even though they don't also, you know, seem to know what they are really doing there. They should have an emergency meeting at this point. Because if you have pockets of implosion everywhere, then what's going to happen to the people? Issue of refugee crisis. You know, you're going to have a situation on our hands where poverty is going to increase. And African Union cannot just be aloof and watch each of its states, you know, imploding one after the other. Since the United Nations today is moribund, I would say so with boldness, that they are no longer fit for what, you know, the founding father asked them to do in 1945. Since they are no longer fit, then Africans should come together and see what they can do to preserve the sanctity, you know, of this continent, which is the richest continent in the globe. So the African Union have a lot of work to do. ECOWAS is imploding to the point now that they are not even cohesive. They can't even come together to have any meeting. And if this is happening in Gabon and it's keep on going towards the Central Africa, I think a time will come where even the AU will become powerless. So it's time now to do it.
A crisis of governance happening across Africa. Thank you so much, Dr. Olawunmi, for your contribution this morning. Retired Navy Commodore and Head of Department of International Relations and Diplomatic Studies at the Christian University, Abeokuta, Dr. Kunle Olawunmi. Many thanks.
Thank you for having me.